One of the things I crack up at the most is when actors kind of talk ill about past movies that they've been in. It's usually not something that happens. Most actors understand the game. You never want to speak ill of the projects you worked on, not until it's far removed, far down the road, and no one really cares about it anymore. Every movie has problems. Let's make no mistake about that. Every single movie has problems. But when you start talking crap about a movie you've been in and it's close to the film's release or within a couple of years of the film's release, it really does cause people to raise an eyebrow. If you recall, Shia LaBeouf talked a lot of crap about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He didn't even do it diplomatically. He just said that the movie was bad and that, Spielberg agreed with him that the movie was bad. But Spielberg came out and said, well, I made the movie my friend George wanted me to make, and that's how he played it off. But again, the thing is, it's all about politics and diplomacy. When you're talking about a public image, that's how you have to play it, especially in Hollywood. Now, that kind of candor can be seeming, I don't know, refreshing at times, but you still want to have it be done down the road and not in close proximity to stuff that you've worked on, which is why when it comes to John Boyega and him having said here that The Last Jedi calls it a bit iffy, that's just a nice way of saying it. That's a nice way of saying exactly what the rest of us are thinking, just in more of a diplomatic way. He doesn't come out and call it trash, but he definitely isn't going to be as nice to it as other people might be. Other fans on the internet are trying to be. And if you put this in consideration with what Anthony Daniels has said about him being just table decoration in The Last Jedi, as well as what Mark Hamill has said about feeling like he's not playing his own character, like he's playing Jake Skywalker. And then you talk to the actor who played Admiral Akbar, and now he went back to his dressing room and he cried after he felt he was mocked after his character was unceremoniously killed in The Last Jedi. It starts to paint this picture. It starts to really paint this picture about just how bad the internal response to The Last Jedi was. So let's take a look here at what he says so I don't just get too far ahead of myself. Now it says here, Boyega has shared some of his true feelings about The Last Jedi. The actor reprising his role as Finn in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which hits theaters this month. Finn has been a huge part of the new trilogy, starting with 2015's The Force Awakens. However, Boyega revealed that he was feeling iffy about some of the decisions Rian Johnson made on Episode 8. Now, the cast and the director, J.J. Abrams, have been making the press rounds lately to promote the release of the movie. Abrams also directed The Force Awakens, but passed the torch to Rian Johnson, who served as the writer-director of The Last Jedi. Boyega, during a recent interview, opened up a bit about his conflicting feelings regarding the second movie in the sequel trilogy, and this is what he says. He says, The Force Awakens, I think, was the beginning of something quite solid. The Last Jedi, if I'm being honest, I'd say that there was a feeling of a bit iffy for me. I didn't necessarily agree with a lot of the choices in that, and that's something that I spoke to Mark Hamill a lot about when we had conversations about it. It was hard for all of us because we were separated. And that's a big part of the franchise. And I just talked about that in the video where I say that The Last Jedi will never be as revered as Empire Strikes Back. And I mentioned the whole separation of the groups, and that's fine. You can have that. But there still has to be like a thing for them to be together before being separated. In The Last Jedi, there wasn't that. Rey was already gone. Finn and Poe were trying to figure it out, but then they brought Rose into the mix. Finn led a mutiny, and Poe led a mutiny, and Finn and Rose went off to a stupid ass casino planet where they rescued animals but left the slave children because, priorities. And yeah, they were separated at the most of the movie, and at the end of it, nothing really mattered. Canto Bight didn't matter. Nothing mattered. And again, it goes on to say here, Mark Hamill has shared similar thoughts over the past couple of years. While Hamill has praised director Rian Johnson as a filmmaker, he also expressed frustrations over the way Luke Skywalker was handled in the new trilogy. Hamill certainly isn't alone in that respect, as The Last Jedi proved to be rather divisive among the fan base. It certainly has turned into a love-hate entry within the franchise. Well, yeah. And honestly, more people out there are coming around to the fact that it's not a good movie. And you can tell that by all the access media that's attempting to smear the legacy of The Empire Strikes Back by trying to say that eventually, one day, The Last Jedi will be as revered, which is just not true at all. Now, it says here that Finn wound up on a journey with Kelly Marie Tran's Rose to find a codebreaker in Canto Bight, far removed from the rest of the action for much of the movie. It also proved to be a fruitless endeavor, as Admiral Holdo and Leia had an escape plan in mind the whole time. Speaking further, Boyega explained that he liked the group dynamic that was expressed in the original Star Wars trilogy between Luke, Leia, and Han, which is something that he hopes he can recapture in episode 9. And that is something that JJ has wanted to do. That is something that JJ has really wanted to do. And you could tell that because this subject keeps coming up about them being separated in the last movie, but they're together in the adventures for this movie. And that's what they like. Now, he says here that I guess the original Star Wars films, that there was much more of a trio feel where it was essentially about Luke's journey, but Han and Leia were there. There was a strong dynamic, which I don't know how quickly we're going to be able to establish that long-term dynamic with 9, but if it's exploring that dynamic, then that would be cool. Well, he would know it's exploring that dynamic. He would know that because he's been in the movie. He knows, his script apparently was under his bed for a while and ended up being sold on eBay, right? Now, granted, he can't quite come out and say that specifically to avoid spoilers, but I mean, come on, right? I still think that script thing was BS, by the way. Now, finishing up here, it says, the group dynamic between Rey, Finn, and Poe has been played up in the marketing for this movie, while Abrams has made comments assuring he doesn't intend to retcon The Last Jedi. Some of what's going on certainly does feel responsive at the very least. We'll have to see how it all plays out when The Rise of Skywalker hits theaters on December 20th, and that's really about it. So let's think about that for a second, right? When Boyega comes out and he says that it's iffy, and he had discussions with Mark Hamill about it. Mark Hamill has been very open about how he feels about The Last Jedi, right? And I think he caught a lot of crap for that by Disney brass, if I'm being fair. Because he had said some comments, some choice comments, and then retconned those comments, walked back those comments. And then the last couple of years, he hasn't really said anything, but we know. I mean, you can see his face. You can see his face when they got done with the first screening of the movie and all the cast went up on stage. You can see his face. You know specifically, precisely what he's thinking because the rest of us are right there with him. Mark was the face of the fan base at that point in time, and I think he knows it, and I think we know it, and I think eventually he'll give us his true feelings. But I can't help but ponder this question. As I was reading that article, I kept thinking one thing. With Anthony Daniels criticizing The Last Jedi, with John Boyega criticizing The Last Jedi, with other people having criticized The Last Jedi who worked on the movie, could it be possible that there is this discussion amongst the core cast to not trash The Last Jedi, but to distance themselves from it as in a way of acknowledging to the fan base, we got you covered. We got this. We understand your feelings. We get your disappointment. We completely comprehend the trepidations. We get it, guys. And so they're sending these coded messages that are out there that are meant to strike headlines, but to be looked at as critical, but not attacking it because these guys know how to play the game. And JJ, of course, is going to play Rian did nothing wrong. He didn't do anything that fundamentally detoured what we were going to do with this movie, originally what we had planned out. So we could easily go back and tell that story. But if you listen to what he says, to how JJ framed it, what Rian Johnson did fundamentally changed the direction of the franchise. And it's JJ Abrams' job to reel it the hell back in. Whether or not he can pull that off, I have literally no idea. I'm excited to find out in just a couple days, but I know that I have no idea. None of us do until we actually get to the theater to watch the movie. I just find it funny that core actors of the franchise are coming out and saying that The Last Jedi, maybe it wasn't that good. Maybe it wasn't that good. And while they're talking up this movie, that's almost unheard of. Because in these press interviews and in these press junkets and all these tours and whatnot, they get talking points, right? We know this. Tom Hanks has showcased this. They get talking points from Disney. Things they're allowed to say, things they're not allowed to say, key points that they're meant to talk up. It's all carefully crafted. And I'm wondering if any of the negativity aimed at The Last Jedi is something that is cooked up by Disney PR to bring in the people that are like the fandom menace, because that's been mentioned by JJ now. I wonder that. I have no way of knowing. It's simply a theory, a speculation, just a hypothesis. But if you look at how everything's kind of played out, it's meant to be kind of a reassuring angle, isn't it? Trash The Last Jedi, sell more tickets. That's what it feels like to me. but I could be wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, I want you to tell me. If you think I'm right, I want you to tell me. I want your thoughts. I want your opinions. I want your thumbs up on the video. Be sure to subscribe, hit that bell, comment, all that jazz. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. May the force be with you. I love you lots. Peace out. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.